You ever just sit and think about nicknames that don't make sense anymore? They just don't fit anymore. Really, when you think about them, you're just sort of like, what? I'm thinking about the Los Angeles Lakers right now. And I have a question for you guys, because you guys are all big LA fans. How many lakes are in LA? I'm messing around with you, but I'm kind of serious at the same time, right? Because we all know there's not that many lakes in LA anymore. Like, there's more reservoirs, and even those reservoirs are being drained because we're in a drought. And so the call the Los Angeles Lakers is kind of like, ooh, what happened there? It made sense at one time, right? They were from Minneapolis, the land of 10,000 lakes, right? So it made sense at that time, but they never changed the name when they came to LA. So they were always the Los Angeles Lakers, and we just accept it as that, right? Where I'm getting at with all this is there are some names in the Bible that we give people that just don't make sense anymore. I mean, they made sense at one point, and I'll tell you why. But they don't make sense anymore. And the one I'm thinking about, and the one you're probably thinking about, is Doubting Thomas. Now, at one time, that made sense. At one time, that made sense, and I'll tell you why. We're gonna be in John chapter 20, but first we have to go back to John chapter 19, because in John chapter 19 we see that Jesus appears to his disciples in the upper room. On the evening of that first day of the week, when the disciples were together with the doors locked for fear of the Jews, Jesus came and stood among them and said, "Peace be with you." After he said this, he showed them his hands and side, and the disciples were overjoyed when they saw the Lord. And again, Jesus said, "Peace be with you." And so here we are. We have this moment, right? The disciples are in the room. They're gathered together. Jesus shows up behind locked doors because they're like, whoa, wait, how did you even get in here? And he goes, "Peace be with you," which is like, hey, calm down. It's okay. I'm with you. But if we read that story, it's kind of like the disciples look around and they notice something. They notice something's missing. They know someone is missing. And it's Thomas. And so that brings up a question for me, really, is when we're at church services and we're looking around our church foyers or our church rooms, do we notice when people are missing? Do we notice when they're absent? Do we notice when they're not there? Do we notice when Jesus shows up and does something amazing in our Sunday morning service when those people aren't there? And then do we do what the disciples did? Because it says they went out and they tracked Thomas down. And that's where we begin, verse 20, right? 24, really. Now Thomas, called Didymus, one of the 12, was not with the disciples when Jesus came. So the other disciples told him, "We have seen the Lord." And when it says that, if you break it down into its context, it's not like we told them once, right? Like, "Hey, dude, we saw the Lord." No, it's like they told him over and over and over again, "We have saw the Lord. Jesus is alive. He appeared before us behind locked doors, bro." And there he was, right? You have to come see him. You have to. Maybe he's going to make another appearance. You have to come with us this next week. They tell him over and over again. They're very insistent. And Thomas's reaction is why he gets that nickname. Thomas's reaction is kind of a human reaction to us, but it's why he gets that nickname, Doubting Thomas. He said to them, "Unless I see the nail marks in his hands and put my finger where the nails were, and put my hand into his side, I'll not believe it. I'm not going to believe it. Like, unless I see it with my own flesh and blood and eyes, and I touch him and I feel him, there's no way I'm going to listen to anything you say, because I know that he died on the cross. I know that he was buried. That's what I know. And I know death is final, so you can't tell me anything else." And they're like, "No, bro, you have to come. You have to come." So a week later, his disciples were in the house again, and Thomas was with him. He came. He came. And through the doors, and though the doors were locked, Jesus came and stood among them and said, "Peace be with you," just like the first time. But then something changes. Something changes, right? Because he doesn't speak to any of the other disciples this time. He looks directly at Thomas. Hey, Thomas, put your finger here in my side. Touch me. See that I'm real. Reach out your hands. He tells him exactly what he told the other disciples. Now, Jesus wasn't with the other disciples when they went and saw Thomas, but here he is, word for word almost, telling him exactly what he wanted. Touch me here. See this? I'm real. It's me, Thomas. And in that moment, Thomas, there's no evidence that Thomas ever went up and touched him at all. It's just in that moment, he made this amazing declaration of faith. He said to him, verse 26, verse 28, my Lord and my God. As an act of full surrender. Not only are you my Lord, you're my God. I give you everything, not just a little bit. I'm all in. This is it. I surrendered. And Jesus in that moment tells him, because you've seen me, you believe. Blessed are those who will not see me and still will believe. And that's us today. We really haven't seen him flesh and blood. He hasn't appeared to us, not that I know of. Maybe he did to a few. I don't know. But no, not that I know of. He hasn't come to church for us, right? Not physically. He will come back one day. Blessed are those who believe without seeing. That's faith. So Thomas gets this nickname, Doubting Thomas, but really, he gives the best proclamation of faith you can see in the Bible. So perhaps surrendering Thomas or faithful Thomas, the nickname made sense at the time. It just doesn't make sense anymore. Because he's moved to a new area. He's moved to a new area in his life. This is Thomas, the one that's loved by Jesus. A son of the one true King. And so I wonder if there was a time when we doubted, and a time when we were somewhere we shouldn't have been, and some friends came to us and told us, hey, listen. And we had doubts, and we had worries. But those doubts and worries led us to Jesus, and led us to acts of faith. We don't have to live by those old nicknames, those old monikers. We don't have to live that old lifestyle anymore. We can be so much more. Are you still living your life with an old nickname when you're not that anymore?